Hello dear student, Assalamu alaikum. Hoping you are fine and you have enjoyed the previous lecture. Today, before beginning our next lecture, let's have a review of the previous lecture. Let's see and let's understand what we have learnt in our previous lecture. In our previous lecture, we discussed about the word international, and we discussed the person who used the word international for the first time, and his name was Jeremy Bentham. He used the word in the year 1789, and then we also discussed some of the other events that occurred in the year 1789. Can you recall that events? Yes, one was French Revolution, and the second was the first US Constitution that was enforced for the first time. And with that, the first US President, whose name was, yes, George Washington, yes, and he took oath as the first President of United States of America. After that, we discussed the meaning of international relations, and we discussed that international relation is concerned with the relation between states, relation between nations, and then there are two views about international relations. One was the narrow view, and the second was a broader view. What was the narrow view about? The narrow view take very restricted view of international relations and restrict or limit international relations to political activities, the official relations between states. And the broad view basically extend the view of international relations to many interactions, many relations, the relations between different types of organizations, the relation between peoples, the relations between different agencies, even the study of international law. And finally, we discussed that even the internal affair of a state falls within the jurisdiction of international relations. After that, which view is acceptable at present? Which of the view is applicable at present? So the view is basically the broad view, because international relations is not narrow. It has assumed a very broader view. इसकी जड़ें काफ़ी डिसिप्लिन्स में और काफ़ी एरियाज में फैल गई हैं. इसलिए इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस को स्टडी करते वक्त वी विल ऑलवेज टेक द ब्रॉडर व्यू. दिस वाज द रिवीजन ऑफ द प्रीवियस लेक्चर. लेट्स मूव टू अवर नेक्स्ट लेक्चर, lecture number 2. In today's lecture, we will discuss international relations and its relation with international politics. Then we will discuss the scope of IR, then the importance or significance of IR as a discipline. Again, we will end up with a summary and some review questions. Hope this will understandable. If I ask you a question, that is there any difference between international relations and international politics? So what will be your answer? Are they the same or are they different? ज़ाहिरी बात है आपका आंसर होगा कि ये different है, because they are two different words. One is called international relations and the second is called international politics. If I again give you a food for thought, कि दोनों में क्या relation है? जी, international politics और international relations. क्योंकि in the field of international relations बहुत से thinkers का ये ख्याल है, ये ख्याल हुआ करता था कि international politics और international relations दोनों सेम हैं. हालांकि दोनों सेम नहीं हैं, और वक्त के साथ साथ जो तब्दीलियां आती गईं तो उसने साबित किया कि there is a difference between international relations and international politics. The difference is just like if we have the narrow view and the broad view of international relations. आप दोबारा इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस के दोनों व्यूज़ को रिपीट करें, दोनों को दोबारा दोहराएं, नैरो व्यू एंड द ब्रॉड व्यू। अगर मैं इसको ऐसे ले लूं कि जो नैरो व्यू है इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस का, so this will be very close to international politics, and the broad view belongs to international relations, because the narrow view was very narrow. It was restricted to only political activities. It was only related to official activities, while the international relations broad view is extending to many spheres, to many domains of life, to many domains of international events. And as a result, for simplicity, I would again go and define international politics and recall the narrow view of international relations. तो remember, जिस तरह international relations का narrow view limited है, इसी तरह international politics भी limited है, क्योंकि इसका ताल्लुक narrow view से है, और international relation broad है, उसका दायरे इख्तियार वसी है. So, if we are going to define international politics, so it will be defined as the way in which sovereign states interact with each other on political level. It's basically the interaction on the political level. सियासी तौर पे जो interactions होती हैं state के बीच में, that's basically called international politics. Can you see that this political interaction is basically to achieve power? क्योंकि according to realist एक school of thought है international relations में, जिनका ये ख्याल है कि जितनी भी रियासतें हैं, they try to get power. Their ultimate objective is to get power. जितने भी ममालिक हैं और जो states हैं और जो governments हैं, तो realist की theory यही है, realism यही है, और हकीकत यही है कि ये जो states हैं, ये power के लिए कोशिश करती हैं, इनको power पसंद है. Remember, power is a luxury. Power is a joy. Power gets you many things. And therefore the states try to achieve power. And if they try to achieve power, so this would be basically called international politics. And for this international politics, the states interact with one another on political level, which is again the narrow view of international relations. So international politics is very limited. It is concerned only with the official relations, the relations between states on political level. The purpose of this relation is to solve their conflicts and to achieve power. That's how IP international politics is concerned with political activities involving politics, state interest and conflicts. So it relates with these kind of affairs. The ultimate objective is again to achieve power. आप पॉलिटिक्स करते हैं, आप सियासत करते हैं, किस लिए? एक ऑब्जेक्टिव को हासिल करने के लिए. तो जो स्टेट अपना ऑब्जेक्टिव हासिल करेगा, that's basically would be coming under the international politics, because it has an interest and it is striving for that interest on political level without involving other groups. According to Morgenthau is a very notable and very famous thinker and writer in international relations, and his views are very respectable and his expressions are really very weighty. They're really full of expressions and full of stress, and they meet a lot. According to Morgenthau, international politics is the struggle for and the use of power involving nations, involving states. So again, international politics is concerned with the use of power and struggle for power. That's what a state basically do. In the picture, you can see Morgenthau. Morgenthau was a born German, And before World War II, he left for United States because of the disturbance in Germany. And then he worked throughout in United States, and he served at very key positions. His famous book is called Politics Among Nations. Please try to remember the masterpieces. Try to also know about the important books in the international relations and their authors. It is important. So his famous book is called Politics Among Nations. As compared to international politics, international relation is broader. It includes a wide variety of activities, a wide variety of political and even non-political. It includes official as well as unofficial. It includes formal and informal activities and relations between different diverse groups, different organizations. In the picture, you can see what is international politics. The objective is to control the globe, to control the world, and that's basically the international politics aims at. It tries to fully control all the states and to achieve and to struggle for power. In the next, you can see 3 images. Again, you can see the power politics, the struggle for power, and in that picture, you can see 3 dominant powers in the world. The cross represents Christianity or the Christian world, and the star, basically the 6-corner star, represent Jewish, यहूदी लॉबी को represent करती है, और जो सितारा और हिलाल है, the crescent and the star, they represent the Muslim forces. And there is a struggle to achieve and to dominate other group. Although the Muslims would not be very much dominant because their objective is different, but still power politics or international politics is to get yourself prominent and to influence the other groups. The scope of IR. Let's see, what do we mean by scope? According to Oxford Dictionary, the extent of the area or subject matter that something deals with or to which it is relevant. स्कोप से मुराद एक जो डिसिप्लिन है उसके दायरे अख्तियार में कौन कौन सी चीज़ें आती हैं, उसके दायरे अख्तियार में कौन से मज़ामीन आते हैं, कौन से डोमेन्स आते हैं, कहाँ कहाँ पे आप उसको अप्लाई कर सकते हैं. So all these areas, all these domains in which you can apply international relations, and those areas are also relevant, so they would be called the scope. In the scope, if we begin, the scope of international relations has again a very gradual growth. शुरू में इसका स्कोप बहुत नैरो था. ये हम डेफिनेशन में भी पढ़ चुके हैं कि फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल इट वाज डीलिंग विद द ऑफिशियल रिलेशंस. It was related to diplomatic activities, and then the scope was widening. Let's see how the scope widened with the passage of time. The scope of IR started with diplomatic history. Again, the same as we discussed in international relations definition. Earlier, it includes the activities of the diplomats and the negotiations and the talk, basically the relations at political level, the relations at governmental level. So only this much part was included in the scope of international relations. And international relation was not interested in other type of activities. So this was in the beginning. Then, before I go to the next point, again you can see an image in which you can see the diplomatic relations between the officials, and you can see the ambassadors and the diplomats negotiating. That was basically the initial scope of international relations. Then the study of international law also become a part of international relations. And in studying international relations, we also keep on considering international law, which means international law also became a part and was included in the scope of international relations. Why this was so? Because as there grew conflicts in the world, and with the conflicts also came different types of pacts, different type of treaties. जैसे टेंशन बढ़ती जाती है तो उसके बाद उसका सोल्यूशन भी निकलता है, और सोल्यूशन के नतीजे में मुआहदे जन्म लेते हैं. Therefore, ये जो मुआहदे जन्म लेते हैं और डिफरेंट टाइप्स के एग्रीमेंट्स होते हैं, तो फिर इनको फॉलो करने के लिए भी कुछ प्रिंसिपल्स होते हैं जो कि फिर बाद में इंटरनेशनल लॉ बन जाते हैं. So these pacts and treaties then included in the international relations and also form of international law widened the scope of international relations. Then the study of international organization was also included. Why it was included? Can you think why it was included? Because international organizations deal with different states. And if it deals with different states, it is coming under the domain of international relations. क्योंकि international relations का ताल्लुक ही state से है. तो अगर international organizations हैं जो कि मुख्तलिफ और variety of countries में वो काम करेंगे, तो इसका लाजमी मतलब है कि this would be included in international relations. There is an example of an organization which is called League of Nations. Maybe you have heard the name of League of Nations. It is similar to United Nations because even the name is similar to United Nations, and it was an international organization. Can I ask you in which year this foundation or this organization may have been established? I will give you a clue. When was United Nations founded? United Nations was founded, yes, after World War II. And this organization was before United Nations. So what could be the possibility of its establishment? On the same principle, it should be after World War I. क्योंकि दूसरी जंग अजीम के बाद अगर यूएन बन रही है तो ये जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है ये उससे पहले है. So this means it was after World War I. पहले जंग अजीम के बाद बनी होगी. और कल हमने डिस्कस किया था कि पहली जंग अजीम कौन से साल में शुरू हुई? It started in 1914. Good. And when did the First World War ended? We discussed it yesterday. The First World War was stretched to 4 years. Therefore, the First World War ended in 1918. तो ये ऑर्गेनाइजेशन उसके बाद बनी होगी. इसका मुमकिन ईयर कौन सा हो सकता है? आप करीबी हो सकते हैं. It is not 1918, it is 1919. It takes some time to be established. So League of Nations was established in the year 1919 after World War I. And the objective of this organization was to prevent the world from a future war and to establish peace in the world, just like the objective of United Nations. You can see the logo of League of Nations. It was the symbol representing League of Nations that was founded in 1919 to establish and maintain world peace. Can you name some other organizations, some other international organizations or even regional organizations. I know you know a lot. So let's start. Yes, there is UN, there is OIC, there is Arab League, yes, there is SARC, there is UNESCO, there is IMF, there is so many. And you can see the name of some others as well. You can also see the symbol of United Nations. That is a world organization and it is striving hard for maintaining world peace. So, as the scope of IR is now widening, it started with diplomatic history, then the study of international law was also included. With the emergence of international organizations, the study of international organization was also included, because they were dealing with the states, they were dealing with so many countries. And then, post-World War II, great changes started coming in the world. Post-World War II, मतलब क्या है इसका? Remember, जब भी post का word आता है, इसका मतलब होता है after. So this means आफ्टर वर्ल्ड वॉर टू, दूसरे जंगी अजीम के बाद दुनिया में बहुत तेजी से तब्दीलियां आनी शुरू हुई. देयर वर सो मेनी चेंजेस दैट स्टार्टेड हैपनिंग इन द वर्ल्ड. आई वुड लाइक टू आस्क यू अगेन, व्हाट आर दोस इवेंट्स, व्हाट आर दोस चेंजेस दैट अकर्ड आफ्टर वर्ल्ड वॉर टू? प्लीज थिंक. I will be giving you a clue. एक का ताल्लुक हमसे है. इससे भी आसान उसका ताल्लुक हमारे मुल्क से है. Yes, you get the point. We got independence after World War II. It is a great change for us because we became independent. हमारे अलावा और भी कोई आज़ाद हुआ? जी हाँ, इंडिया आज़ाद हुआ, पाकिस्तान बना, और इसके अलावा बहुत से ममालिक दुनिया में आज़ाद हैसियत से उभरे. सो देयर आर मैनी कंट्रीज दैट गॉट इंडिपेंडेंस आफ्टर वर्ल्ड वॉर टू. इट वॉज अ ग्रेट चेंज. एंड कैन यू सी दैट एज दीज कंट्रीज आर गेटिंग इंडिपेंडेंस, द स्कोप ऑफ IR इज इंक्रीजिंग, इट इज वाइडनिंग, because now these independent states would also interact with one another. They would have relations with one another. And because of these so many states establishing relations and dealing so many matters, so the scope of international relations would be widening. So the events after World War II again increased and widened the scope of international relations. ये तो हमने एक डिस्कस किया कि बहुत से ममालिक आज़ाद हैसियत से दुनिया के नक्शे पे आए. इसके अलावा और कौन से चेंजेस हैं? अगेन आई वुड हेल्प यू दैट दीज स्टेट्स दैट गॉट इंडिपेंडेंस, जिसमें पाकिस्तान है, जिसमें इंडिया है, चाइना है, मलेशिया है, इंडोनेशिया है, अफ्रीकन स्टेट्स बहुत ज़्यादा हैं. तो ये कहाँ से आज़ाद हुए? किन ममालिक से आज़ाद हुए? हाँ, उसमें ब्रिटिश भी आता है, तो यू हैव ब्रिटिश. इसके अलावा और भी काफ़ी स्टेट्स हैं, यूरोपियन स्टेट्स हैं, क्योंकि बिफोर वर्ल्ड वॉर टू all these, most of the European states, they were controlling and they have colonies in different parts of the world. Mostly the colonies were in Asia and Africa. ये जो यूरोपियन स्टेट्स हैं, जिसमें ब्रिटेन है, जिसमें फ्रांस है, जिसमें जर्मनी है, जिसमें नीदरलैंड है, जिसमें पुर्तगाल है, जिसको पुर्तगाल भी कहते हैं. And these states were controlling and they have established colonies. So if the colonies are getting independence, तो इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि ये जो यूरोपियन कंट्रीज हैं, so their power is decreasing. Their power has basically declined. उनकी पावर में कमी हो रही है, इसलिए वो अपनी कॉलोनीज को मेंटेन नहीं कर सकते, ये मजबूर हैं कि ये उनको आज़ादी दें, तो इनकी पावर कम हो रही है. Again, it was another very drastic change. After World War II, the Europe power was decreasing. And why was it decreasing? My next question. Sorry, I asked too many questions. So let's learn. So why the power of Europe was decreasing? Yes, because there was World War II. These European countries were involved in World War II. जंग अजीम यूरोप के वसी इलाके में लड़ी गई. And because these European countries were a party to the war, so after fighting that world war, their power weakened. They were destroyed. They were not economically strong to maintain themselves, and therefore they could not control their colonies. This was the destruction of World War II. So, इसी के साथ, if we just again have a review of these points, so the changes after World War II is that we have the Europe power being declining, the Europe power being decreasing. And why was it? Because of the World War II. Let's see the destruction of the World War II. You can see cities which are without people, full of destruction, full of destroyed buildings, but no people. Where are the people? Here are the people. It's such a pathetic scene. It's such a pitiful. These people are ruthlessly killed. They are women, there are children, there are old people, young people. No distinction. Weapons have killed them all. It was the destruction of World War II. You can only see army, you can only see military men, but where is the nation? Where are the people? So if this was the effect of the World War, how could the European states maintain or control their colonies? They have to come back and make their own nation and make their own country. That was the objective. So because of the Europe getting weak, the colonies start getting independence, and we have discussed why they are getting independence. There is another very great change that occurred after World War II, and that was the emergence of bipolar world. The emergence of bipolar world. What is that? Bi means two, and poles means pointed edges that you can easily see, that are distinguished. So basically they are two corners which are distinguished, and they are opposite of each other because they are poles. The poles are always opposite to each other. So after World War II, the world saw two poles being formed in the earth. What were those two poles? Yes, there were two major powers. One power was United States, US, and the second power is, again I would say, there was US. And can you make the two alphabets turn around? US, so turn it around, it becomes SU. US को आप उल्टा पढ़ें तो बन जाता है SU. तो ये दूसरी कंट्री है. One was called United States. Second was called Soviet Union, जिसको USSR भी कहा करते थे. So US and SU, and they appeared as the major powers in the world. And because they assumed that major powers, because they were the victorious states after World War II, and they were not very much hit by the World War II, and they have all the resources to control. Therefore, these two powers emerged as the superpowers. But these two powers have a very sharp difference. इनके बीच में बहुत खतरनाक किस्म का इख्तिलाफ था. वो इख्तिलाफ इनके आइडियोलॉजीज डिफरेंट होने की वजह से था. So they have different ideologies, and because of their different ideologies, they could not see to each other. एक दूसरे को आंख न बांधे थे. So they were against each other. One was US, second was SU. The ideology in US was capitalism. They like private property. And in Soviet Union, it was favoring socialism, which means everything belonged to state. कोई private property नहीं है. हर एक चीज़ state के पास है और state ने ही वो लोगों को देनी है. तो यहाँ पे मुश्तरका प्रॉपर्टी है. US में इंडिविजुअल प्रॉपर्टी है, और ये जो दो निज़ाम ही एक दूसरे के ऑपोजिट हैं, क्योंकि अल्टीमेटली जो सोशलिज्म है वो चाहता है कि वो पूरी दुनिया को इनगल्फ कर ले, पूरी दुनिया पे फैल जाए, और इसी तरह सारी प्राइवेट प्रॉपर्टी ख़त्म हो जाए, जो कि US नहीं चाहता. So because of their different ideologies, these two states were in a state of war. Although not actual war, but there was a cold war. एक सर्द जंग जिसमें वो सामने लड़ तो नहीं रहे, लेकिन एक दूसरे के खिलाफ बहुत सारा प्रोपेगेंडा कर रहे हैं. And they are trying to weaken the power of other, and they are fighting secretly against each other. So this bipolar world saw the day after World War II. Before World War II, the world was multipolar. Multipolar से क्या मुराद है? Again, multi means many. So this means many powers. From 1648 to 1945, there were many powers. And the powers were basically in Europe. So many European states were powerful, and no one claimed to be the superpower. But after World War II, there was two superpowers that emerged from the World War II. ये जो डेट है 1648 काफ़ी इम्पॉर्टेंट डेट है, आप इसको अपने जहन में रख लें. We will be discussing this very frequently in international relations. You can see the bipolar world in that map. So you have US on one side, and you have the Soviet Union bloc on the other side. The countries that support US forms the Western bloc, and the countries that think similar to Soviet Union, or they have political system which is similar to Soviet Union, they form the Eastern bloc. So one is the Western bloc or the capitalistic bloc, and the second is the Eastern bloc or the socialist bloc. And these were in a state of constant tension and conflict. Another phenomena that occurred after World War II is armaments and the nuclear proliferation. What are these terms? By armament, we mean the race for obtaining arms. असलहा हासिल करने की जो जस्तजू है और जो रेस है, उससे आर्ममेंट कहेंगे. So because many states got independence after World War II, they were trying to get weapons. They were trying to get arms. So there were different types of factories being established, not only in the country themselves, but they were also exporting weapons from the other countries. So there was a race from the arms, a race for weapons. तो असलहे की इस दौड़ में दुनिया में असलहा के अंबार लगते गए. और जाहिर बात है, ये जो फेनोमेना हो रहा है, ये जो इंटरनेशनल इवेंट हो रहा है, इसकी वजह से आईआर का स्कोप चेंज हो रहा है. आईआर इसको भी डील कर रहा है, और वो ये भी चाह रहा है कि जो असला है ये ज़्यादा ना बढ़े, तो वो इसके साथ डील करने की कोशिश कर रहा है. international countries are dealing with decreasing that race or slowing down that race, and therefore it is resulting in increasing the scope of IR. और उससे खतरनाक न्यूक्लियर प्रोलिफरेशन है. प्रोलिफरेशन से मुराद ग्रोथ है. जब कोई स्टेट अपनी न्यूक्लियर पावर को बढ़ाता है और न्यूक्लियर पावर हासिल करने के लिए इट एस्टेब्लिश्ड न्यूक्लियर पावर प्लांट्स and it go for nuclear test, remember the world would be very dangerous if all the countries start getting nuclear weapons. इसीलिए ज़रूरी है कि जो स्टेट्स हैं उनको न्यूक्लियर पावर हासिल करने से बचाया जाए, उनको रोका जाए, क्योंकि न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स आर वेरी डेडली, बहुत ख़तरनाक है, जानलेवा है. हाउ टू प्रिवेंट other countries from not getting nuclear weapons? And the answer is that you should having international pacts, you should have international treaties which emphasize on stopping nuclear growth. So these proliferation, the nuclear expansion and the effort to stop nuclear expansion further increased the scope of IR. You can see the nuclear explosion in one image, and in the second image there is a very good saying. I like it very much. It's a drop bombs and carry arms. मतलब है कि गिराना भी खतरनाक और ले जाना भी खतरनाक. बॉम्ब्स को गिराएं और हथियार ले जाएं. एक को गिराना खतरनाक है, दूसरे को ले जाना खतरनाक है. सो इट्स वेरी सरकास्टिक, बहुत ही तंज़िया जुमला है, बट दैट्स द रियलिटी. दैट इज व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इन द वर्ल्ड एंड वी शुड स्टॉप इट. द स्टडी ऑफ इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस एम्स टू स्टॉप such kind of events. So the rise of democratic governments and the rising expectations of people resulted in increasing the scope of IR. अब लोग बच्चे नहीं रहे, अब लोगों की डिमांड्स ज़्यादा हो गई हैं, उनको गवर्नमेंट से ज़्यादा फैसिलिटीज़ चाहिए, उनकी नीड्स बढ़ गई हैं, वो गवर्नमेंट से ज़्यादा डिमांडिंग हैं, और इसलिए गवर्नमेंट उनकी नीड्स को पूरा करने के लिए बाकी रियासतों के साथ मजबूर है कि ताल्लुक़ रखे और वहाँ से नीड्स को किसी तरीके से पूरा कर सकें. So these growing demands of the people and along with it the concept of welfare state, कि एक स्टेट अपनी अवाम को सारी फैसिलिटीज़ प्रोवाइड करें ताकि लोग खुशहाल ज़िंदगी बसर कर सकें, इसकी वजह से जो ज़्यादा इंटरेक्शन हो रही है ऑन द इंटरनेशनल लेवल, तो अल्टीमेटली it is resulting in increasing the scope of IR. So the scope of IR is continuously increasing. As you can see, the power of the people, and therefore the people demand more. And the government has to now talk more to the other states. It has to negotiate with other governments on very diverse level. As you can see that now the people say, we are not living to work. We work to live. तो लिहाजा उनको और भी नीड्स चाहिए, उनको और भी फैसिलिटीज चाहिए जिसकी वो गवर्नमेंट से डिमांड कर रहे हैं. कंक्लूजन में वी सॉ दैट द स्कोप ऑफ IR हैज वाइडन्ड, इट हैज ब्रॉडन्ड. स्कोप काफ़ी वसी हुआ. पहले मुख्तसर था. इट स्टार्टेड विद डिप्लोमेटिक एक्टिविटीज़, it started with diplomatic affairs, then the study of international law was included, then with the growth and the establishment of international organizations like League of Nations, like United Nations, like NATO, like Warsaw Pact, CETO, SANTO, OIC, Arab League, SARC, all these and many organizations, as they keep on coming, they increase the scope of IR. And with that, international politics, because the states were trying to gain power, then the scope of IR also included foreign policies and different types of interactions which include economic and financial matters. geographical, ideological, and even military thoughts and strategic studies were included in the scope of IR, because the army dealt with other states. The army tries to know about other states and their powers and their army, and therefore the states also have to negotiate on that level as well. तो इस स्ट्रेटेजिक स्टडीज की वजह से भी आईआर का स्कोप बढ़ता गया. अब हम देख रहे हैं कि आईआर का स्कोप मुसलसल बढ़ रहा है. इट इज ग्रोइंग एज अ सब्जेक्ट. आईआर is a growing discipline, but still there are many weaknesses. वो जो weaknesses हैं, वो जो कमजोरियां हैं इस सब्जेक्ट में, वो कौन सी हैं? Number 1, it lacks systematic body of organized theories and principles. इसके पास अपनी नजरियात नहीं हैं, इनके पास अपने प्रिंसिपल्स नहीं हैं, क्योंकि ये अभी एक नया सब्जेक्ट है. ये अभी अभी इसकी ग्रोथ हो रही है, ये अभी भी सीख रहा है, इसीलिए इसकी अपनी थ्योरीज नहीं है, और इसी वजह से इसका सब्जेक्ट मैटर की यूनिकनेस नहीं है. इट डजंट हैव द यूनिटी ऑफ सब्जेक्ट मैटर, और ये बाकी सब्जेक्ट्स पे ज़्यादा इन्हिसार करता है. अपने थ्योरीज को ये नहीं बना रहा, बल्कि ये बाकी सब्जेक्ट से थ्योरीज ले रहा है, बाकी सब्जेक्ट से हेल्प ले रहा है. डिफरेंट फेनोमेना को, डिफरेंट इवेंट्स को एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए इसके पास अपनी थ्योरीज नहीं है. जो भी इंटरनेशनल इवेंट्स होते हैं, जो भी फेनोमेना हो रहे हैं, उनको अंडरस्टैंड करने के लिए आईआर बाकी सब्जेक्ट से हेल्प लेता है और उनके थ्योरीज, प्रिंसिपल्स और लॉस को यूज करता है. आखिर वो कौन से सब्जेक्ट्स हैं जिनसे ये हेल्प लेता है? उसमें फिलॉसफी है, लॉ, हिस्ट्री, पॉलिटिकल साइंस, साइकोलॉजी, और इस तरह बहुत से सब्जेक्ट्स हैं जिनसे आईआर हेल्प लेता है, क्योंकि इसकी अपनी थ्योरीज अभी इतनी ज़्यादा डेवलप नहीं हुई हैं. ये सीख रहा है, ये ग्रो कर रहा है, और इसकी थ्योरीज वक्त के साथ साथ आते रहेंगे. इसके अलावा IR lacks objectivity, which means it has a subjective nature. ये accurate prediction नहीं कर सकता, ये सही पेशन गोई नहीं कर सकता कि किसी इवेंट का आखिर में क्या असर होगा, उसके नताइज क्या होंगे. ये नताइज अखज़ करने में यहाँ पे कोई ऑब्जेक्टिविटी नहीं है. वो जो पेशन गोई है, जो फोरकास्टिंग है, वो गलती हो सकती है, वो सही भी हो सकती है, जिसकी मेन वजह ये है कि IR डील्स विद मैन एंड IR डील्स विद सॉवरेन स्टेट्स, इट डील्स विद इंडिपेंडेंट स्टेट्स, और इनके बिहेवियर को जानना बहुत डिफिकल्ट है. इसलिए IR सही तरीके से पेशन गोई नहीं कर सकता. इवन जो IR के एक्सपर्ट्स हैं, जो एनालिस्ट हैं, वो भी जब कोई तज्जिया करते हैं, सो दे हैव अ डिफरेंस ऑफ ओपिनियन. वन वुड बी हैविंग वन व्यू, द सेकंड वुड बी हैविंग अनदर व्यू, एंड दे वुड बी हैविंग अ वेरी लार्ज डिफरेंस, एंड दे वुड कम with different results and different effects. So this means that the objectivity hasn't been developed in IR. But डिस्पाइट ऑल दीज वीकनेसेस, इन तमाम कमजोरियों के बावजूद IR ग्रो तो कर रहा है. सो इट इज अ ग्रोइंग सब्जेक्ट, एंड इट इज ग्रोइंग विद इट्स सम ऑफ डिस्टिंक्टिव थ्योरीज. अपनी इसने कुछ डिस्टिंक्टिव, कुछ अलग थ्योरीज ये अपने लिए बना रहा है. अगर जनरल नहीं बनाई तो अपनी कुछ डेवलप कर रहा है. एंड इट हैज अ डिस्टिंक्टिव सब्जेक्ट मैटर, and therefore may be regarded as a discipline. This discipline that provides a systematic approach for solving problems of international life. And with this, we end up the scope of international relations, and we'll move towards our next topic, which is the importance of international relations. Dear students, Let's understand the importance of IR as a discipline. IR की अहमियत क्या है? The first is IR helps in understanding the present world and the causes of advancement and the backwardness of different states. So IR help us in understanding our world. ये जो मौजूदा दुनिया है, इसको समझने में IR हमारी हेल्प करता है. Even we also come to know about the past of the world and the historical growth of different states and the historical growth of different events and different phenomena. So IR help us in understanding our present world. Without the study of IR, how would we know and understand other countries and their policies? But through IR, we come to know about the government policies and the causes of their success or failure. एक गवर्नमेंट अगर कोई पॉलिसी पे अमल करता है और उसको बनाता है, तो क्या वो पॉलिसी कामयाब हो रही है कि नाकाम हो रही है? IR के मुताले से हमें इसका इल्म होगा and we would be able to know about it. For example, policy like free market policy, क्या इसके फ़ायदे हैं या नुकसानात हैं? एक मुल्क ने अगर इस पॉलिसी को अपनाया तो उसके क्या इफ़ेक्ट निकले? This would be answered by the study of international relations. Similarly, what is the effect of privatization? What is the effect of nationalization? Are they beneficial? Are they harmful? What about free media? What about education policies? So all these kind of events and policies can be understandable through the study of international relations. And by studying these, we can learn lesson from it. हम इससे काफ़ी चीज़ें सीख सकते हैं. We can judge ourselves and we can apply those which are beneficial for our benefit. और जहाँ भी कहीं पे नुकसान हुआ हो किसी पॉलिसी का, तो we can avoid it. हम उसको रोक सकते हैं. अब जिस तरह चाइना की इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी है, so it's a guiding stone for the world. It is a source of beacon light for others. ये हमारे लिए मशाल राह है, क्योंकि चाइना की इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी ने चाइना को एक ताकतवर मुल्क की तरह सामने ले आए हैं. And similarly, the example of Japan is before us, and how the policies of the Japanese government has made Japan as a technological advanced country. The second, with the study of IR, we understand the problem facing the world, and we also then know how to solve them. Because when we study IR, then we are able to find the international problems. Not only our problems, because we can know our problems, but when we study about others, we also know how were those problems emerged in those states and how we can avoid those kind of problems. And if there were problems in that part of the country, how would that country solve that problem? So all these strategies and these solutions can be achieved only through the study of IR. And with this, IR help us in understanding and finding solution through mutual cooperation and combined strategy. जो इंटरनेशनल प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, जो दुनिया के मसाइल हैं, इसका जानना सिर्फ ज़रूरी नहीं है. इसको कैसे सॉल्व किया जाए, और एक मुल्क अकेला सॉल्व भी नहीं कर सकता. So we need a number of countries to work together for the solution of that problem, because some problems are very acute, they are very difficult, and for solving those problems we need mutual efforts and mutual cooperations. For example, problem like global warming, population utilization, how to fully utilize your population, what kind of planning should be done for it, how the strategies should be developed to make your population become an asset. And then collective security. पूरी दुनिया को अमन की तरफ लेके जाना है, सिक्योरिटी दिलानी है, टेररिज्म को रोकना है, ऐसे problems के लिए we need mutual cooperations and mutual efforts. And you can see how we can arrive at this mutual cooperations, because it will make our world a better world. As we have already discussed that a state cannot live by itself. It's very difficult for a state to live in isolation. A state has to establish relation with other states. It has different needs, and for fulfilling its different needs in the today's world, it has to establish relations with other countries. And when you are establishing relations with other countries, so what are you doing? You will be cooperating. Can you see that international study के मुताले से आप international cooperation भी हासिल कर रहे हो, because you are establishing relations. और relations अगर आप बना रहे हो, अगर आपके relations कायम हो रहे हैं, इसका मतलब है कि you are cooperating. क्योंकि relations अगर कायम होंगे तो वो सिर्फ cooperation से होंगे. अगर conflicts होंगे then relations would be broken. So the study of IR helps in seeking international cooperation for a better world. It shares common concern over global issues and problems, and you can see as the world belongs to us, and therefore all our hands should be moved towards saving our world. We should be helping the world. We should join hands without any discrimination. You can see different nationalities in the figure having their hands, and they are combined, they are joined, and they are mutually struggling to make the world peaceful. For example, problems like illiteracy, problem like nuclear expansion, and threat to global peace. Then there is climatic change, energy conservation. आजकल एनर्जी काफ़ी दुनिया में कम हो रही है, हमारे एनर्जी के रिसोर्सेज कम हो रहे हैं. So the study of IR would always try to have cooperation and a combined strategy, how to fight against these kind of problems and how to find better solutions or better alternatives. IR की वजह से हम ये problem solve कर सकते हैं. IR also helps in encouraging peaceful relations. Remember, peace is what we need at the present. We cannot afford wars. We cannot afford conflicts. The people demands facilities. The people have diverse needs. दुनिया की पॉपुलेशन काफ़ी ज़्यादा हो गई है. हमने उनकी ज़रूरियात को पूरा करना है. हम जंग के मुतहम्मिल नहीं हो सकते. हमारे रिसोर्सेज कम हो रहे हैं. हमें चाहिए कि ये जो हमारे रिसोर्सेज हैं, हम इनको पॉजिटिवली यूज़ करें. हम इसको ऐसे तरीके से यूज़ करें कि सारी दुनिया में खुशहाली आए. देयर शुड बी प्रॉस्पेरिटी, देयर शुड बी जॉय, and there should be no conflict. The study of IR helps us in avoiding conflicts. It helps us in establishing peace. Because when we study IR, we learn these lessons that we should avoid conflicts. Because conflicts leads to tension. Conflicts leads to destruction. जहाँ पे भी कन्फ्लिक्ट्स होंगे, जहाँ पे तनाज़ात होंगे, हमने उन तनाज़ात को हल करना है तो एक ख़ास तरीके से हल करना है. We should not go for different types of confrontation. The study of IR helps us in understanding that we should solve our problems and our conflicts through different mechanisms. We should not go for propaganda, or basically negative propaganda, in which one country is criticizing the other country and popularizing a propaganda. किसी दूसरे मुल्क के खिलाफ प्रोपेगेंडा करना, इसके नेगेटिव असरात होंगे, इसके पॉजिटिव असरात कभी नहीं होंगे. अगर हमने दुनिया में अमन कायम करना है तो हमने प्रोपेगेंडा से अपने आप को बचाना है. दिस इज व्हाट वी आर लर्निंग फ्रॉम इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस, बिकॉज द पास्ट इज बिफोर अस. World War I में जो डिफरेंट कॉजेज़ हैं, उसके जो डिफरेंट वजूहात हैं, उसमें ये भी है कि देयर वाज नेगेटिव प्रोपेगेंडा अगेंस्ट अदर स्टेट्स and there were secret military alliances, which means the states were doing pacts and alliances with other states, and those alliances were secret. एक मुल्क दूसरे मुल्क के साथ खुफिया मुआहदे कर रहा है जबकि इसके नेबर को पता नहीं है, और जब जंग होती है तो ये नेबर कह रहा है कि ये अकेला होगा, लेकिन जब जंग होती है then the other state also come in between and the result is different. So the effect of secret military alliance is that it creates tension, it results in war. So we should avoid secret military pacts. अगर हमने फौजी माहदा करना है तो इसको ओपन हो, it should be known to all others कि भाई इन दोनों ममालिक के बीच में इत्तेफाक है, इनके बीच में इत्तेहाद है, and therefore the other country should not fight with them. So the military alliances should be open, it should be revealed, it should not be secret, because secret military alliances are not fruitful for the world peace. And similarly, the race for the armaments, असलहे का हसूल दुनिया में अमन नहीं लाता, बल्कि ये दुनिया के अमन के लिए खतरा है. So we should avoid race for the arms, we should avoid the race for weapons. जो पैसा हमारा आर्म्स पे यूज हो रहा है, we should allocate this money to other resources that should be serving the service of the people, that should be serving the benefits of the people, and therefore the spending on the arms should be decreased, and this would be achieving the peace. Remember, the study of IR helps us in establishing peaceful relations and not to go for these kind of strategies. We learned that if there are conflicts, if there are tensions between different states, that tension should be solved through peaceful means. What are those peaceful means? The peaceful means are diplomacy and negotiations. You should talk. Remember, talk, solve the problems. You should go for diplomacy. You should go for dialogues. बातचीत होगी, बातचीत से मसाइल का हल होगा, और जंगों से मसाइल का हल नहीं निकलता. And with this, when there is peace between states, then there would be a time when we would be having a global peace. We would be having a world peace. In that world peace, you would be having universal brotherhood. All the people would be living happily, and there would be no tension and no war. The study of IR is helping us in achieving this, and we are seeing that the conflicts are most of the time stopped because the people have information, the states have information about the international relations, and that is proving beneficial to them. The next importance of IR is that it ensures and builds proper economic relations between international communities, because IR deals with nations, and in that nations, when you are dealing, so there is also trade relations also being discussed, economic activities are also considered, and this would be resulting in a very good and positive race for economy and for the businessman, and they would be promoting their business, not nationally but also internationally. It helps in promoting effective trade policies between states, because the states try to meet the needs of the people. They negotiate with other states, they talk with other states, and they arrive at different kind of peace settlements. And with this, we have better exchange of goods and products, better tariffs, because the states are involved on the international level. They are promoting the business. They are trying to export and import, and for this they are negotiating with other governments, and they are arriving at good policies, how to have good tariffs, how to have good currency exchange, how to have good products, and the different rates on which they can be done. The next importance of IR is that it helps us in understanding and promoting human culture through international exchange. Remember, the international relations help us in understanding the culture of other nations because there is a close interaction between the states. And when there is a close interaction, there is also people movement. And along with the people movement, you also have the culture knowledge that moves. So, through the study of IR, we know the culture of others and we respect them. We have better and safe traveling across the globe. We have better visa regulations, immigration policies, and citizenship laws because the people are moving. They are moving to different states because they have relations. And with that relations, remember, we have new laws for the people to protect the people. This also encourages scholarly visits and exchange programs, promoting national culture through cultural exhibition program and culture fair. Again, all these are done by the study of international relations. You can see the different culture of different states, and these are known because we have established relations with other states which are helpful to us. Dear students, with this we come to the end of the first unit. I hope you have enjoyed the 2 lectures and you have also understand the international relation as a subject. These are the references that were used. And now let's come to the summary of this chapter. We begin with using the word international, and who used the word international for the first time? He was Jeremy Bentham, who was a British political philosopher, and he used this word in the year 1789. And in the same year, we also have French Revolution and the first US Constitution being enforced and the first US President, George Washington, taking the oath. Then we discussed about the meaning of IR, which means it's the relation between states, it's the relation between nations. And in that relations, we have 2 views about international relations. One was the narrow view, the second was the broader view. The narrow view was concerned with the political activities and with the official relations. And the broad view was concerned with many aspects of human domain. It includes international organization, it includes people movement, it includes different types of associations, it includes economic associations, it includes trade relations, it includes religious relations, and so many. So this was the broad view of international relations, which is also being applied in the present world. Then we discussed the scope of IR, and in the scope of IR, we discussed that IR started with a smaller scope, with a very limited scope, because it was limited to diplomatic activities in the start. इसके बाद the study of international law was included, and then as the international organizations like League of Nations, like UN, the scope of IR also get widened. Then after World War II, the different events and the phenomena and the changes also increased and widened the scope of IR. In these events, we saw the decline of European powers because they fought the World War II, and therefore they were not strong enough to control their colonies. तो क्या हुआ? The colonies also start getting independence. So the world map saw many countries getting independence. दुनिया के नक्शों पे काफ़ी ममालिक आते गए. इसी के साथ the countries also involved in an arms race. Arms race race for arms, the race for weapons, again increased the scope of the IR. Then there was bipolar world, in which the world was divided into two poles. One was the Eastern Bloc, the second was the Western Bloc, and these two blocks were in a state of conflicts. They were in a state of tension, and studying them and the events happening between them is increasing the scope of international relations. Then nuclear proliferation, the growth of nuclear technology, and the rise of representative governments, the rise of democracy, and the concept of welfare state, in which the people is demanding too much from the government, and therefore to fulfill the needs of the people, the state has to establish relations on all levels with other states, again increasing the scope of IR. So these were the events and changes that increased the scope of IR. And then we discussed about the importance of IR. And the importance of IR were that it helps us in understanding the present world. It helps us in understanding the success and failure of the policies of the governments on the international level. It helps us in understanding the problems confronting the world, and the problems that are on the international level again require international cooperation. So through the study of IR, we come to know and we come to understand what are the problems of the today's world and how those problems should be solved. Therefore, the study of IR helps us in establishing cooperation, helps us in mutual understanding of the realization of the solution of the problem, how to solve those problems. So the state come together and they try to solve the problem through mutual strategy and mutual cooperation. इसके साथ the study of IR help us in encouraging peaceful relations. अमन कैसे लाना है, अमन के ताल्लुकात कैसे होंगे? The study of IR help us in having those positive and peaceful relations. And study of IR also help us in establishing good economic relations between states. It improves the trade policies. It has encouraged economic policies. It has encouraged the international trade and the international agreements on different types of trade, and has promoted export and import, and that's a very good achievement of IR. And lastly, international relations help us in understanding human culture and human civilization and the respect for other culture and civilization, and again to maintain our identity and not to merge it with the international identity, but striving for a universal brotherhood. At the end, I would like you to know about a few questions, and I hope that you will inshallah get the answer in my lecture as well as in my presentation. The review question on this unit, international relation, definition, meaning and scope are: number 1, who used the word international for the first time, and how many schools of thought exist on IR definition. Second, distinguish between narrow and broad view about IR. Next, trace the growth of the scope of IR with the passage of time. And what is the significance or the importance of studying IR? With this, we come to the end of this unit. Our next lecture would be on nation-state system. Up till that, I wish you best of luck and see you in the next lecture. Allah Hafiz.